Hey, thanks for joining me in this video. We're going to do a follow-up review. This is more of a long-term owner's review of this TurboAnt X7 Pro electric scooter. And if you haven't seen the unboxing and sort of the initial kind of maiden voyage of this thing, I'll put a link to that right up here for you to check out if you want to. But we're going to go out and we're going to see how this thing performs on the hills. And then we're going to circle back and just talk about where I've been able to take this thing and what the user experience has been like, what kind of range you can expect, and just general stuff like that. So let's get into it. So on flat ground, I'm doing about 18 miles an hour in sport mode. It's not bad. I got it on cruise control here. Let's see how it handles this incline. I know it's going to slow down on me. That's not too bad. This is a pretty good incline. Well, it made it all the way up here. I think the manual said it's good for about a 15% grade. That seems about right to me. And I do love this cruise control feature. As soon as you hear the beep, you can take your thumb off the throttle and you just keep going. Let's see if I can get up this hill after starting slowly. I didn't have a running start like I had last time. Now it says 7. I assume that means 7 miles an hour, but there's no way this is 7 miles an hour. This is more like 2.5 miles an hour. For what it's worth. And I do not have the tires fully inflated. I can tell they're a little bit soft, and I should probably put some more air in them. And I would not only extend my range, but also increase my speed. Here's a little bit of a hill here. This is probably going to be just about 15%, and a pretty noticeable slowdown to a crawl. Let's see if we can make it to the top. I'm in cruise. Yeah, okay, it did slow down substantially, but it made it to the top. It kept going. I think I slowed down to about 4 miles an hour, which is basically walking pace. So we're hitting about 18 miles an hour now. Not too bad. So I can make it all the way to the top. This is a little bit longer hill, a little more gradual. I got up to 13 miles an hour. Now we're starting to drag as expected. 9, 8, 7, 6, 4. And again, it keeps going. It doesn't come to a complete stop. And now it's picking up speed again. All right. So I think that 15-degree grade rating is probably about right. Keeping your tires inflated on these things is actually really helpful as well. The hills will be a little better if you keep the tires topped off. You can feel the cruise control disengage as soon as you hit the brake, just like you would expect, which is nice. Now I do have this like in the red dot sport mode, I think is what it's called. So acceleration is a little more aggressive. I don't know, aggressive is a strong word. When you have it on the red D, which I guess is the sport mode, and you're first starting off, this thing actually will spin the tire just momentarily, or it can. So it does start off a lot more aggressively in this mode, but you can back it down if that's something that bothers you. Now the turning radius on this thing is just enough to get me around on something as wide as this bike path. If the path were any narrower, like a sidewalk for example, the turning radius is fairly limited. And so you may have to actually get off and kind of reposition the scooter. But you can make the turn, a 180 turn here on a bike path. And these tires they're not like big like bike tires, you know, but they're bigger than your skateboard tire or rollerblade tire. So they do a pretty decent job on these bumps, I have to say. And you feel them, but it doesn't feel like you're going to lose stability when you do. All right, well, we have moved back inside because, well, January has decided to be more like normal January. So, yeah, so this is what I'm dealing with right now. All right, let's talk about the specs on this X7 Pro from TurboAnt. It has a 350 watt motor. It's up here in the front wheel. It has a 360 watt hour battery that is right here. And one of the reasons I like that the battery is in the handlebar stem is that a lot of e-scooters have the battery in the deck, which means that it hangs down further on the bottom, which gives you less clearance for going over things like small speed bumps and curbs and things like that, and you're more likely to bottom out. So I do feel like having the battery up here makes it A, a little bit more accessible, and B, just gives you a little bit more ground clearance when you're going over rough terrain. Now the price on this is $399 currently. Now I think the list price is a bit higher than that, but they do have a special running on this thing right now on TurboAnt.com, so you may want to go check that out. And by the way, I will put links in the description below if you want to go check those out. And I don't know if there's going to be a discount code for that or not. I'm looking into it. If there is, I will put that in the description below with the links. Now, some other specs you're going to want to know about this is that it has a range of up to about 30 miles and a top speed of 20 miles an hour. Now, those particular specs are calculated with a rider that's about 165 pounds, riding on level ground with maybe a slight breeze at their back. So I think in terms of real world range, now I'm a 200 pound guy, like right at 200 pounds, average height. So my range is probably going to be closer to 20 miles on this. Now I haven't been able to fully test that out, but that's my best sort of estimate based on its performance and how I've watched the battery state of charge change over having ridden it quite a few miles. Now, in terms of top speed, I've only been able to get it up to about 18 miles an hour on flat ground. And again, that's because I'm a 200 pound guy, not a 165 pound guy. So quite literally, your mileage may vary if you happen to weigh 115 pounds or 165 pounds versus somebody who's 200 pounds. Now that said, this scooter is designed to handle riders up to 275 pounds. Now the braking system on this has a handbrake here, as you might expect, and it's got the foot brake option that you just can brake on the back, and the handbrake controls the front and the back, and the foot brake just adds another layer. So it's basically a three-way braking, and that'll allow you to stop from its top speed to a complete stop in about 16 feet if you need to, which is pretty good. Now the battery, which as I said is right here on the stem, that can be removed easily and swapped out for another battery. You can charge it while it's in the scooter. You can charge it independent of being in the scooter, so you can put it on a table. And the nice thing is you can bring the battery in out of the cold if you need to, so that you can charge it while it's freezing outside, because you definitely don't want to charge the battery or try to charge the battery if the battery is in a freezing temperature, because you could actually damage the life of the battery by doing that. So being able to remove it is actually pretty nice. Now I do wish there was a keyed option so that somebody couldn't easily just remove the battery without a key, as is the case, but there is no keyed option. And I guess it's probably a bigger deal if you have something like an e-bike that you can't take inside. Something like this, you can actually just grab it, lift it up and carry it inside. It's relatively manageable, certainly more manageable than an e-bike, even a foldable e-bike. Now these things aren't lightweight, they're about 33 pounds, but that's certainly lightweight enough to sort of hand carry it with a single arm. And I do wish, this is very slippery under here. I wish it had some kind of a little rubber, hand grip thing that, I could kind of latch onto, because this is basically the balance point. If you lift it from right about here, it's easy to carry it balanced in one hand. Now, while we're talking about things that I thought could be a little bit better on a scooter like this, is that at least for a 200 pound rider, they do rate this thing for a 15-degree grade or hill, which is kind of what I tested it on in some of the clips that you saw. And you did see that it slows down fairly dramatically. Now, I think if you were a much lighter weight rider and you fully topped off the air pressure in the tires, and that is something that I had done a few months ago. I haven't, or 2 months ago, we'll say. I've not actually put air in it since then, and I think because it was pretty cold out since I last put air in the tires, they were a little bit underinflated. So that definitely impacted my top speed, and also certainly impacted, as a result, my ability to climb hills at a little bit faster of a clip than I was able to. But again, 200-pound guy versus a 150-pound guy, there's going to be a difference there with the 350-watt motor. Now that said, there's a lot that I do like about this scooter. So I have the pros list is a lot longer than the cons list. I pretty much told you everything that was on my cons list. So in terms of the pros, I really do like the fact that this thing is very easy to fold down and put back up. And that really makes it stowable in a car or maybe under a desk. Makes it really easy to take it into a classroom if you're using this in a campus environment or in an office environment. So it's very easy and portable to just kind of stow this thing and take it out of the way. It's a lot harder to do that, especially if you've got stairs involved and you're trying to lug up an e-bike. Even a foldable one, those, even when they're folded, are pretty beastly, and they're just awkward to carry because they weigh about 65 pounds. This weighs less than half that at about 33 pounds. It's technically not less than half that. Anyway, another item on my pros list for this X7 Pro is that the battery is on the stem. And I mentioned that before. That does give you better ground clearance beneath the deck for clearing little curbs and speed bumps and things like that. It does feel to me to be constructed of very high quality materials. The battery, it feels like it's built like a tank. It feels like it could take a bullet. Don't try that. But it feels like it could. And just the rest of it just feels like it's made from premium materials. Everything from the handles down to the deck just really feels well built. Does not feel like a toy at all. I also like the fact that it's got headlights and taillights, and it's not just taillights. The taillights here on the back fender are red, solid when you have the lights on, and if you apply the brake, the taillights will actually flash, kind of giving anybody behind you a heads up that you are about to stop. So that's pretty cool. I didn't really expect that on an e-scooter. Now, continuing on with the pros, as I mentioned in some of the clips that you saw, I mentioned this in the original video that I did, I really love the cruise control option, because there's one thing I hate is having to constantly keep your thumb on the throttle all the time. When you get up to speed, it's just nice to be able to, you hear the couple of beeps, cruise is set, you can take your finger off the throttle and it'll just go, and all you got to do is steer. You don't have to worry about controlling the throttle. And as soon as you pull the brake, the cruise disengages just like it does on a car, so super convenient for that. Now, another pro that I mentioned in the clips that you saw is that these 10-inch tires, there's actually an inner tube in there. It is filled with air, as you would expect with an inner tube, but they are not like solid rubber, which means that these 10-inch tires are sufficient diameter, and since they are air-filled, they do kind of soak up a lot of the bumps. And as I mentioned, you'll still feel the bumps, but they don't destabilize you for the most part, unless it's really severe. And they do actually give you an extra inner tube in the box with this X7 Pro, just in case you get a hole in one. Now, another thing that I like about this X7 Pro and a TurboAnt website in general is they have a bunch of cool accessories for this, whether it be a waterproof bag that you can attach to the front of this, extra spare parts. You can easily replace the wheels or the control module or the braking system. All that stuff is readily available and reasonably priced on the TurboAnt website. And again, I'll put links to that stuff below if you want to go check that stuff out. All right, who do I think the TurboAnt X7 Pro E-Scooter is for? Well, I think if you're somebody who works in an environment where you have a pretty long walk commute, maybe either from a carpooling parking lot, something like that, or maybe you're using this on a campus, or you're going to and from your apartment to your office if you live in an urban environment, and you have a pretty good long walk, something like this would be ideal. Or maybe you're an RVer and you just want a fast, convenient, quick way to get to the laundry, the restrooms, and the showers and stuff like that in a campground. Something like this would be pretty cool to be able to kind of zoom around on it. It's very quiet, doesn't bother the other campers, and it doesn't use gas or anything like that. You just recharge it and off to the races. And by the way, the range on this thing, as I mentioned, is more than enough for those kinds of uses that I mentioned. It's way more than enough and then some. But either way, I do think that the X7 Pro is a very practical option for those particular uses that I mentioned. And at just under $400, I do think the X7 Pro is one of the better, more affordable options in this particular range and quality of materials category. So hopefully you found some of this information helpful. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up on the video. I would really appreciate that. I got a lot of other types of content, as you may know. I do a lot of videos in the solar panel, portable power, DIY kind of category, but occasionally I branch out and do things like e-bikes and e-scooters and other outdoor type stuff. So if that's your jam, feel free to subscribe. I would love to have you along for the ride. And thanks for sticking with me. I do hope to see you in the next one. Until then, have fun out there.